UPS is an example how we chose to go to market, and use this as kind of a guide and as a discussion point to show how we entered the market, and maybe that's despite we're a 40 billion plus revenue company, it was still a very tough exercise to get into China. So we started in China in 1988 through 2003 as a joint venture. At that time, UPS, as big as we are, could not play in that market. There was only one company that's allowed to actually work and service transportation, especially on the express line. It's called Sinotrans. So that company actually will represent UPS, DHL, and FedEx at the same time. We had zero control of our customer experience. The salesperson would basically have 3 different name cards. We'll walk into a customer and go, what rate would you like? Okay, well, this rate is more like UPS, and you want to go to the US, I'll give you the UPS rate. Oh, you want to go to Europe? I'll give you the DHL rate, right? So he has zero control over the customer experience, what you want to do in that market. But it's still attractive market and we went in. So what we did was we had a partner with Sinotrans. We expanded our service in line with Sinotrans, but really spent a lot of time doing the things that we need to do, which is building out an air network, connecting China in and out, using what we know, while waiting for the time to change. So 2004 is really when the WTO happened, the market freed up, and we really got to own our own destiny. So we spent 2004 and 2010 really building on our infrastructure and really putting our ground operations into cities like you would see here in the US or in Roswell and Bucket with drivers and aircraft and massive air network hubs that actually make sense. So as you look at market entry into China, you got to really think, do you partner with somebody? Do you spend a lot of money to build out? And maybe it's a phased approach like we do. And then we're going forward from 2000, and one of the proudest pieces that I actually had, and I'll just use that as an example, 2008 was the start of the Olympics. And at that time, the Chinese government actually came back and said, we're not very good at logistics. And we're doing this really wonderful event. We want to show ourselves out to the world, but we need someone to help us. And they actually chose UPS. So, and I'm going back a little bit, but for those of you who remember from the opening ceremonies from 2008, all the drums, the flying piano, all that was stored in the UPS warehouse. We actually hired 7,000 employees just to help Chinese government do the Olympics. And actually everything coming into and outside out of the Olympics were actually handled by UPS. And the joy and the prideful piece of that is actually, instead of just building out infrastructure, we were able to partner with the Chinese government with a high-profile event and then actually be able to bring value to the Chinese government. And that value and the branding actually help us become a stronger market player and help us increase awareness. So going forward with some of the new changes in the economy and the government, you got to really look at China differently. You can't really just spend money like we used to, and we can't even do that anymore. You have to be very targeted because the customers are much more sophisticated. Like I said, the market's changing, the local competitors changing. So going forward, you got to be very conscious of what geographies are, and then also what some of the new industrial centers. So you have to be very, very focused in terms of where you want to invest, which customers you really want to grow, and then also what your customer needs are. And then also building out for the new consumption economy. And that's really where we focused our efforts from 2011 and beyond. We built out operations in the western part of China, going where our customers are. We built out healthcare facilities in China to really meet the growing needs of the Chinese consumers in terms of their healthcare needs. And then ultimately, we did develop specific vertical needs for high-tech customers that actually may need rail network that moves from China to Europe. So again, be very sensitive to what your customers ask. You can't, again, go into China and offer a standard product. You have to be very customized because now the consumers are very sophisticated. The local companies are very sophisticated. And finally, your competitors are very sophisticated as well. In summary, a little bit of pitch about UPS. We've been there since 1988. And then we actually have been a company since 1907. We have lots of experiences in China. Lots of experience connecting the world to China and back to China. So if there's an interest to play in China, if you need a logistics provider, I hope you will consider UPS because we offer a full suite of products, portfolio from using the smallest letter to a white piano, to a drum, to a whale, to all sorts of products and all the way through. Plus, we do healthcare, we help big technology companies make sure that you can get your latest Samsung or Apple gadget So if you have a small business need or big business need, we're here to help you. Plus, we have some nice, very nice healthcare clinical. If you want to keep your certain products at -5-degree temperature, we can do that for you as well. So with that, thank you very much for your time.
Certainly, I want to really moderate this panel discussion. I'm going to ask one or two questions first, and I would really want the audience to raise questions and expand on in terms of the speaker's presentation today. And I certainly agree with some of the comments from our speakers. Certainly, Phil, your experience in China is certainly very right on the money. But I just want to find out from UPS perspective, and certainly a big company, and also TVS designed a niche player in the architectural world. What are your top 5 challenges, despite your success in China, in terms of doing this in China, top 5 challenges?
So the top 5 challenges, I would say, is, again, like I mentioned in the slide, a stronger local competitor, as well as international competitors. There are many local competitors, especially supported by the Chinese government, that are actually very tough to crack. And they're currently growing in certain markets that governments are preventing us to access. And with that said, it's not quite a fair level playing field. So that's one of the challenges. The other is just the changing, that would be top number 1. And that's an opportunity really for a challenge for any foreign integrators to be able to play in that market. 2, challenge is the changing consumer needs. As I mentioned, the e-commerce side, but also the sophistication of the Chinese consumers. They're actually demanding a lot more of the companies that they work with. So, for example, previously we could say we can give you an express business, and that's all you need. Now they want alternative loads in terms of having flexibility in the network to pass the cost savings to the customer, but also because they're now more sophisticated players, able to forecast better and really drive better performance out there. Human capital also is a very big and pressing challenge, which continues to be. We started off in China from 1992 with 300 employees. Now we have over 6,000 employees. To actually ramp up into 6,000 employees, to have them represent UPS brand, to be able to then represent UPS to our customers in a very consistent way is a major challenge. And then I think the third, right? So, closing. The changing trade lanes, right? Whereas China and US used to be major trading partners, China and Mexico, China, Africa, and China and Latin America are now becoming major trading partners. You have to really reconfigure and be sensitive to these trading patterns and then make sure that you have the right people, the right infrastructure to be able to really be able to succeed in that. And finally, I think the last thing is be very conscious of the changing markets in China. Again, what I'm telling you here now may not be the same thing next year, and hopefully it'll be the same thing the year after that.
Because we're in the service industry, the first thing I would say the communication with your clients, with your local partner is a challenge for us. Because the first thing is the language barrier there, then the second thing, the time zone, all adds up to quite a challenge normally to a design team. Basically, we maintain a small design team to be agile in that market. The second thing I would say is because the financial situation sometimes, because in US, the service industry, like us, architects, in US we typically bill monthly, but over there is milestone based. So essentially you work for a long time without any payment. So you essentially are financing your clients to do their projects. So that's a very big concern for us sometimes. The third thing is talent. We need to find the right people with the right mindset, and they have that desire to do business in that market, because it's very hard sometimes. You have communication problems, you have time zone issues, sometimes the client is not that realistic. I told you about the schedule. And actually for that project, we have to work very, very late. It's not civil, almost. So that's another thing. But generally speaking, I think over there, the challenge is always, to me, the communication and how to get the idea across and get the clients buy-in. That's the biggest concern for us.
I'm glad. I just want to add a few points. Actually, just reaffirm in terms of what are the opportunities. Logistics is huge, obviously. You probably know the number, close to 200 billion in China in terms of this industry. Certainly, in terms of healthcare, by the way, which is very key under the current regime, and certainly as a result of December 2010 announcement by the government that China has opened up healthcare to allow 100% foreign companies to operate, whether it's hospital, clinical service facility, preventive care. This is huge opportunity in China. In particular, when you look at the aging Chinese population right now, it's about 15%. You know, in a few years, really, I mean, 1/3 will be aging population. This is opportunity. E-commerce, I'm glad Bill mentioned, or someone mentioned e-commerce. I mean, B2B, business to business, business to consumer. More so in agricultural sector, this is going to be huge push from the government going forward. Now, my last question, comment before we open up for question from audiences. I think Nikki made a very good point in terms of using the local resources. Certainly, the Georgia Department of Economic Development, Metro Chamber of Commerce. I also want to add, in addition, I think you also have a lot of local Chinese community groups, such as ACP, which is represented by Julian Gu, Association of Chinese Professionals, NACA, National Association of Chinese Americans, past President Stephen Gu, Young Ma advisor, and certainly CBA, which is Chinese Business Association of Atlanta. But on the federal level, certainly, I just want to add and elaborate in terms of support you can get from the government. Exim Bank has done a great job, but the Department of Commerce and under DOC, the International Trade Administration, are very key partners. You can actually do a feasibility study for your export or projects in Asia, all over the world. Engage them. Very reasonable. They help you do a lot of hand holding. They basically provide a country report and then actually help you even join you in identifying partners for your projects or for your export products. So ITC, ITA, International Trade Administration, and the Department of Commerce are very cooperative. Also OPEC, which is the Overseas Private Investment Corporation. They have done a great job in the past. So these are the resources available in addition to the local. With that, I want to open up questions from the audience. This is a great opportunity. Bill has basically worked in Asia for many years and has covered certainly Asia from business perspective and emerging market. This is a great opportunity. And the connectivity of China, 10 years ago, the whole global economy is US, Europe, Japan led. I think the last few years is basically China-centric, leading emerging market. China, Brazil, China, India, more than 100 billion two-way trade. This is huge. So when you expand in China, when you do this in China, you are connected to emerging market opportunities. So with that, questions from the audience?
I saw Gene first in the back, so Gene.
Henry, you mentioned some of the agencies that are available to help people, if they want to. Thank you, Julian. You mentioned a number of the agencies that are available to help with people if they're considering, establishing a presence in China. And I would just want to be sure that you added one more, and that's the Hong Kong Economic and Trade Office, who I represent here in Atlanta. We offer a service free, where if you're looking to put an office in Hong Kong, and there's a lot of good reasons to do that, and as Philip Wu was talking, I was thinking about those. We can help you with your due diligence, whether you're considering, on the Hong Kong side, if you're considering going into Singapore, Shanghai, wherever. And we hand carry you through that process. Once you get into Hong Kong, we'll take you around for further site selection for an exact spot for a storefront or for an office or what have you. But one of the things about taking a product into China that I did want to point out very quickly is last year, Hong Kong had 52 million visitors. Hong Kong's a city-state, if you will. I know you're all familiar with it, of 7 million people. Now imagine having 52 million people come in to that city. Of that 52 million, 36 million of those come from mainland China. And what do they come to do? Shop. There are hundreds and hundreds. Well, there's over 1,600 companies in Hong Kong that are U.S. companies that maintain a presence there. But a lot of companies, and for instance, Carter's, Oshkosh B'gosh, you know, with their baby products, went over there 2 years ago. And what they'll do is they'll test the market with all of those Chinese consumers that are coming in to see if they can get some brand recognition and support. And then with that, they'll expand on into China without having made a big investment going in there first. And I'll leave all the other advantages out and stop my elevator speech there. Thank you, Henry.
Thank you, Gene. I want to leave this on for you to make a pitch for Hong Kong. That's why I purposely did that. Oh, by the way, I mean, the luxury segment is a huge segment in China. You're looking at 20 billion on luxury side, so it's key. Next question.
Yes, I have a question for the panel. Thank you. Particularly some of your Chinese counterparties, when they're investing in the U.S. or when they're purchasing in the U.S., what are some of their concerns and challenges that they have coming here or working with people in China?
Can you tell us who you are?
Yes, my name is Y. Beaton. I work at the SEC, and I'm a student at the Confucius Institute and also at Georgia State.
I think some of the challenges really depends on what kind of sector you're in, because I think for each individual sector, there are different challenges that come with it. For information communication technology, I know that security is very important, so that's one of the concerns or challenges that you want to look into whenever you're doing business or when trying to investors or looking into the so I think it really depends on what sector it is referring to.
In our training process, the Chinese client normally they will have concerns over, again, I say the communication, whether you can fully understand what they want from you. That's always a concern. Sometimes when we practice the communication basis, then the other thing is always because we're in a social industry that we provide that service that they want a good deal. That's always the case.
Now they're, please.
Hey, this question is for Philip. You said that one of the biggest challenges that you had when UPS was in China was established and entrenched companies there that were protected by the local government. And you said that that was a challenge, but I'm more interested in finding out from you what would be some of the answers to that challenge. You know, with respect to obeying the guidelines set forth by things such as the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, things like that. You know, how do you still have a competitive edge, or how do you do that when you have these unfair competitors locally?
That's a great question. I'll just do it without the mic. So we have a wonderful public affairs department that works very closely with the government. We actually got approval, and we actually recently were approved for 22 cities. So it just takes a little bit longer. And with all things in China, patience is a virtue. So we are slowly expanding. There's other market opportunities in China. So there's definitely more areas where UPS can develop. It just, in some of the markets, where it's just a little tougher for us to get into. And it just takes time. So to answer your question, we've been working very closely with the government, answering their issues and challenges, and making sure they know that we're a good corporate citizen, and that UPS is here to invest in China. We hire Chinese employees, and we're here to really develop the market and help China too. So, and that's why they're approving us for additional city expansion. So it's not as, I guess maybe my initial comment or based on your question, as bleak as it sounds. It just, things take time.
I just want to add a comment. Even on the insurance company under the pilot program of the Shanghai Free Trade Zone. The insurance companies are one of the encouraged industries, but having said that, still, even if they were joint venture, the foreign partner cannot have more than 70%, cannot have more than 30% of the insurance. So it's still very restricted on insurance because of the regulations. Any more questions? Stephen? Yes, I did.
Okay, no.
Oh, by the way, Stephen is one of very good local resources of KPMG, and certainly knows M&A.
Thank you, Henry. I have a question for Philip. I guess, what is your UPS strategy to compete against the newcomers in China? Say Shunfeng, that's also a logistic company. Because let me show you one experience. I was in China for half year last year. My office is in Beijing.
Sure.
I think it's the cover picture of the presentation is I see from there. So one day I went to lunch. So I walked by. My office is right next to Wang Fujin. So there's Wang Fujin bookstore. So I go to the bookstore, see a book I like it. It's called. I still remember the name of the book. It's called the DNA of the Innovator. But I don't want to carry the book to the lunch. So I decided to just order it online. So I used my smartphone, ordered it online, and I came back to my office, 2 p.m., the book is on my desk. So that's like 3 hours, 4 hours delivery. Yes. So I guess with all the newcomers, I know Shunfeng is pretty big, and actually the service is very good, my personal experience. But how do you compete with the local competitors?
Well, it's actually very difficult to compete with Shunfeng because, again, back to the previous question that I commented, Shunfeng can be in more cities than we can and offer service we cannot. And if we can't offer the quality of service that we promise as we do here in the U.S. or Germany, then we choose not to really play in that space until we get the proper approval. I personally use Shunfeng when I was in China when I worked for Napa. It's a great service, but I think there's going to be some consolidation in that market because just before Shunfeng there was Zaitisong, and then after, and there was a bunch of tones, the YTO, the STO, and all that. So it's a very competitive cutthroat market, and that's what you got to be sensitive about it. Do you put your hard-earned capital into a market that's already very competitive with very good margins, or do you wait for it to settle out, get the proper approvals, and then you pick out the proper niche to play? So that's really where our strategy is right now, is really to look at where is the best fit for us. While there's still huge amounts of opportunity for China, both on the export perspective, import perspective, and also some of the deregulated contract logistics piece of the business. But again, going directly head-to-head with Shunfeng is probably not going to be.
Also, I have something to add. That's why I think probably the best way is if we start find a local partner there, because they know the culture, they know the barrier, how to team together to overcome the barriers. And I think we did it. Ricky and I, we used the World Trade Center branding over there. World Trade Center organized delegations, both sides visiting, those matchmaking. So you find the partners there doing business as started. Because if you do your own, that's a big cost. I think, John, you have something to add about that.
I'm Yang Ma. I'm from NACA. Normally, in the U.S., we entertain a lot of delegations from China. So delegation and presentation and dinner and all these. At the end of the day, when all of the PowerPoint presentations are put away, finish all the drinking, always a culture issue, politics issue come up. Whether or not you can cross that barrier and make the deal. So you want to do big business in China, spend a few lessons in China history. That will enable you to cross the barrier. It's no different than doing business in Europe, no different than doing business in Korea. After you put all the PowerPoint charts away, finish all the drinking, they will see whether or not you would want to do business. You can cross that barrier. Be prepared for that one. Okay?
Any more questions from the audience?
How about let's open for one more question for Andy. I know we are over a little bit time.
Okay, ask if you go back.
Okay. How about that's will be last question because we are open on a little bit. It was supposed to start at
Thank you.
I'm very interested in who puts up the funding when the people who are wanting you to build something don't want to put the funding. So how does that work? Or did I misunderstand you? I mean, who's funding this? You know, how's this working? What's the collateral?
Normally, we were not involved in that side of the business in China in terms of the building funding and the financial situation of the project. We purely kind of stay on the demand side and the engineering side to help the clients to get project built. I don't recall any situation that we had anything like involved in that financial arrangements.
What about your fee?
Our fee, we have our standardized fee that we negotiate. That's normal, like doing business anywhere, like in the US or in Dubai, in China. So it's pretty much standardized practice. And we follow the US Institute of Architects standardized practice procedures. So we typically go through a proposal phase and we negotiate the fee and we start our work. So that's pretty standardized.
I just want to add to Lei's comment in terms of funding. I guess you are probably asking about maybe obtaining loan to fund your projects in China. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Well, certainly depends on what industry. Or I mean, you can get bank loans pretty easy in China. Give you some background. If your industry that you're involved in, certainly you have a local partner that will be helpful. If the industry is an encouraged industry, even real estate, you can get funding. Because when I mentioned real estate, if the real estate has a component where you're building assisted living, the government will push for it. Even though real estate lending is forbidden right now. Actually, you cannot even get loans to fund real estate development. But if there's a component to clinical preventive care facilities, yes, you can get funding. There are 3 policy banks that provide funding for certain key industry, encouraged industries in China. Exim Bank in China, similar to the US Exim Bank, Sinosure. You have China Development Bank and you have Agricultural Development Bank. These are all policy banks that can provide funding to you. Certainly you can have access to private equity funds because many of the local cities and provincial government, they do have their own financial center, which is under the vice mayor's supervision. They are responsible for banking and finance. They will arrange financing for you. So China is changing. They are setting up finance companies, consumer finance companies in more than 10 cities where you can basically obtain leasing stuff. So it's evolving. It's not that difficult. I think we are adjourned.
We're not adjourned yet. Did I see Stella walk in the room before? Or was I mistaken?
She just left.
Okay, Stella with the governor's office was here a minute ago. I'm sorry we didn't get a chance to recognize her. I want to thank everybody for coming tonight, but I do want to recognize a couple other people, or maybe recognize a couple people different way. Well, let me do that first, okay? A lot of people are here because they want to do business with China. I mean, that's why we came tonight. Let me offer that you have engineering, architecture, and development on the far end of the table. You've got Vicki, who is with the state of Georgia, but she can also speak to the U.S. Commercial Service and things like that, the Small Business Administration. So if you want to know about government regulations, what I'm glad to do and not, I want to really thank Philip, and I apologize for the change in the schedule. Thank you so much. Philip and UPS have been tremendous supporters to the World Trade Center on an ongoing basis, and I want to give him another round of applause. He didn't get his moment of glory with this. We have Henry, who can speak to monetary exchange and finance. Then, and this whole program would not be possible without the funding of the Confucius Institute and Dr. Botan Gu and Dr. Jun Gu.
and their wonderful staff. And then to close up a little bit for the World Trade Center Atlanta, our President John Parkerson is also the Honorary Consul General of Hungary. A minute ago, I saw Victor Postolacci, who is the ambassador from Moldova, or the former ambassador from Moldova in Russia. There he is waving in the back of the room. So you got Russian.
I was busy with something else with you.
Okay. Oh no, I'm not going to let you talk. I'm just pointing out.
I wanted to tell only one brief.
Please.
I was very attentively listening to what you said. I want to apologize for being a bit late, but what you tell today was the motto how to do business in China. If you have no proper partners and you have no support, don't think that it's so easy to do business, not only in China. There are so many interesting sayings in the English language. Never say never. We have to say never say no. I am happy to tell you that in 2012 I was with business in China 12 times. And I want to tell you that I am a lazy bone. I have to be there not 12, 24 times. The more often you will go there, you will succeed. China is a wonderful country with wonderful people and with an enormous market. There is not enough, there are not enough goods to satisfy the China market. I invite you to go there. I work in the Yunnan province, I work in Changsha, I sell wine. I know Kanbei, Manbei, Ni Hao, Sese.
I also want to introduce Josh. Josh is with Intercontinental, please raise your hand or stand up. Josh is with Intercontinental Hotel Group. It's the largest hotel chain in the world, and they are now planning, I believe it's 18 7-star hotels in China. I hope to be involved in one of those with Julin, actually, in Jiaxing. And, you know, these are very, very large projects like the World Trade Center real estate projects. But then I also want to point out Latrice in the back of the room, who is doing a little tiny bit of import-export, and she's not UPS and she's not Intercontinental Hotel Group at all, but we advertise this program as from the Fortune 500 to the 500-foot level. If you look around, and John and other people, can you help me if I neglected to point someone out? And Gene, I'm glad you stood up and talked because I did want to point out the Hong Kong connection as critical as well. Is there anyone I'm missing to say hello to? So. And then, did I see Lilia Postolacci in the back? If you want to talk about dignitaries with the World Trade Center, I don't think Botung and I and Julin realized how hard this was to put on until we didn't have Lilia in the middle of us. So, but we certainly appreciate all those services. So, with that, Dr. Gu, do you have any closing remarks? Okay. I want to thank you on behalf of the World Trade Center. I want to thank you especially on behalf of the Confucius Institute, Georgia State University, and UPS. Thank you so much. And please mingle, enjoy the excellent food the chef has prepared special for this event, and another glass of wine. Thank you.
I live in